Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 19th, 2012 Board of Education meeting. We were just in executive session discussing personnel and contractual issues. And just so people know that we are being videotaped, and if we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just want to welcome our participation in government students too. I'm sure we have a pretty quick agenda tonight, I think. But if for some reason we go over 9 o'clock, we will stop and then we'll give you a chance to sign out because you have to come up here and sign a form. And then I think we'll start with introductions. Lynn?
Lynn Lenhart, Kate Navarro,
Michael Cooper,
Jody Monroe,
Matt Downey,
Diane Stever. Yeah.
Tom Douglas, Superintendent. Sorry, I was trying to get your agenda.
Laura Bierman,
Charmaine Widgesinger,
Judy Kehoe.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So, recognition of visitors on an agenda item. Anything? Okay. Approval of minutes, the minutes of the September 5th, 2012 regular board meeting. Is there a motion?
Someone.
Second.
It's a first and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That carries. I think Jamie's going to be here a little bit late, somebody said. Okay, so we'll come back to the Student Senate. Can we do that?
Sure.
For when she comes in? Okay. And Superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Board of Education, faculty and staff, as well as the students who are also here tonight, I want to thank you for coming out to this evening's Board of Education meeting. We are roughly into the third week of school with a lot of activities going on from building to building. I've had the opportunity to get around to each building as of today. And I would like to say that, you know, for the most part, with a lot of things that go on from the testing to the newness of a new school year, everyone seems to be adjusting very well, and it's a pleasure to be out. A lot of activities are going on in the classrooms, and it's nice to see the kids smiling and enjoying their day in the school buildings, as well as out at recess, which is still always a popular time. So a lot of things are kicking off with the APPR, such as the beginning of the year pre-testing. I want to thank Ms. Monroe, as well as all the building principals, the supervisors, and most importantly the teachers that are working and going through a very tedious but also worthwhile examination period to try to establish a baseline. And although it is difficult whenever you go into a new trend or participate in the reform agenda, it is also great rewards that are hopefully will be seen at the end. So thank you for everyone that's doing that. On a brighter side, here at the high school, one of the new initiatives that are happening for the high school students is the fact that we now have a student help desk. And I'd like to commend our director, Mr. D'Angelo, and his entire staff for putting this together. And I do believe it's in this room right over here in the library. We will open it up at the end if you want to see it, courtesy of the maintenance department, working very hard with some of our spare materials to set up a unique endeavor for students to run and also assist the district in working through problems on the student side of our infrastructure. And it took a lot of work over the summer, but interviews were held, and I think it's being staffed by 13 students right now, as well as one of our assistants through the tech department, and there's already been a lot of input and utilization of it throughout. So it's possibly a model to consider throughout the district, possibly at the middle school as well. In addition, we will be having a couple events coming up that are in the process of being worked on by our middle school principal and high school principal in regards to the Dignity for All Student Act. They're working on some anti-bullying presentations for not only the students' benefit, but also for the community, and information should be forthcoming in the next couple of weeks about the timing of roughly around mid-October for the first of maybe 2 to 4 segments throughout the year. So So that's where we are at the start, and we're looking forward to really putting the SLOs and the pre-testing behind and really getting into the meat and potatoes of the school year. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Board of Education report, and just, I guess I'm going to throw this out there to our participation governance students. How many pre-tests did you have in your first couple weeks of school? Quite a few? Okay. I know that we had our first forum on the facilities committee. Does anybody want to talk about that? We have to schedule another date for another one. And then I know I'd like to talk about how we're going to run the next one, because I think there's a little bit of confusion last time with board members, because we kind of agreed that we would all kind of be on the outside of it and then listen to all the community members at the end, and then it got a little confusing. So we want to change the process for next time, just kind of be all in agreement for it. So,
Well,
thoughts?
I think it's important that people have a chance to speak up, and sometimes, for board members sitting at the table, sometimes people feel uncomfortable, or else they feel if the board member says something, then that kind of sets the tone for the whole table, and that one person might be speaking for the board. So I think we just have to be careful. We also can't sit together at a table and talk about things, because then it's really an illegal board meeting, because we haven't given notice. It's just a forum for community input. So we just have to be careful what we do, at those sessions.
I disagree. I think a board member should be at every table and listening directly to people. I don't like the forum where a principal or faculty member takes what they've heard and then interprets it for us. I think we should be hearing it directly. If the 7 of us sat at different tables and listened to different people, and I was the one that was sitting at a table, obviously, and I was not giving my opinion and saying things, I sat with a bunch of people that I don't know and would never have contact with and would never hear their opinions. And then I think if we come back to a group, we can say, this was said at my table, this was said at my table, this was, rather than a synopsis from faculty members. I don't think we need that. I don't think we need a middleman between us and the community. I think we can talk to them on our own. I don't think people are intimidated. I mean, I said that right away. No one cared at all. And it was kind of nice to be able to ask follow-up questions. So when it came up, I want the turf field, I don't want the turf field. Well, would you like to know things like, are you for fixing what we have? As a follow-up question that's not on the actual agenda. I want a smaller bond. What do you consider small? Is 5 million small? Is 10 million small? You can get that sense from people as the questions are going on without giving your opinion at all, and then take that information back to the board as a group and see. I mean, most likely we're going to have similar things from different people, but my feeling is the people that come to the forums aren't afraid to say things. That's why they're there. And like I said, I would prefer to sit at a table where I didn't know anybody, because I know what my friends think. I know what my colleagues think. I know what people come through my office think, but I don't know a whole other segment of the population. So I would prefer we do that. I don't get as much out of it by standing in the back and having, like I said, the faculty tell us what people said. I'd rather know myself what people said.
Yeah, but if you have a big group, at
you were at my table.
I do know.
I didn't give my opinion, did I? I didn't.
No, but if you have a big group at a forum, though, you're going to have more than 7 tables. Okay, so that so then there'll be tables without board members. That's one thing.
Jody can
but
do that.
It's also I think the faculty or whomever the facilitators are, very capable of gathering that information, for us, allowing people to freely say what they want to say, because certainly we'll be talking about it here at the board table, and there's also that additional time that they can speak directly to us. So.
Anybody else?
For me, it's not so much the role of the board member for the next. I mean, I assume that the people who reported out took notes and reported out what the group said. I don't think they were filtering it, but my sense is they were the note takers. We were asked to assign note takers for the groups and have the note takers report out. For me, it's how does the entire board get information from the community? And although they can be incredibly intimidating for some folks, I like the open forums, the ones we have at the middle school. The small groups are helpful. I think people get to know new people, get to have smaller scale discussions. But perhaps the next forum, and I'd like to hear what other board members think, should be an open forum at the middle school where people come to the mic and say their piece, and we have to just keep a handle on the booing and the cheering, because I know that that has happened in the budget forums. I know that a community member who's been to several board meetings, who participates to a very high degree, was booed at a meeting once, and I thought that was just inappropriate for the community, that everyone's voice could be heard, and then the full board could hear it at the same time while we're in session, because as Lynn said, we cannot sit any more than I think a group of 4 or 5 of us at any one table. That constitutes a meeting. But if we can all be present and hear from the community, I would suggest or throw out there that the next forum be an open forum. And then it's our responsibility to create a space where anyone can say his or her opinion without being intimidated by members of the community.
Laura, Matt, Mike?
I think that it's useful for the board to be there and to hear what the community is saying, and we certainly got a lot of good feedback from that session. And I don't have a problem with us sitting with the group, but I think we do need to be very, very careful about anything we say, do, or even a facial expression we make being interpreted as a statement of how the board is feeling, because I certainly don't know how the rest of the board is feeling. We haven't discussed it, but it's very difficult in the community if the board sees a board member saying something, or even, making a facial expression, whether conscious or not, to not interpret it as being a statement from the board. So I think we just got to be very careful about that. But I certainly don't have an issue with us sitting with the group.
I kind of like what Charmaine said about having more of an open forum and an opportunity for the community to publicly speak about what they would like us to do for this bond. I mean, eventually we're going to have to hear that anyhow, whether it be at a board meeting and have an opportunity for the public to speak. Why not hear it from the get-go?
Well, since I wasn't at the last one, it's a little hard for me to say how that one went. But I do know in the past, when we had more of those community budget forums, we did try and do a couple of different scenarios of them for different purposes. I mean, usually the small group discussions are for true discussions, so that you can do more follow-up, you can have a discussion, as opposed to just accepting comments. Because I think when we have a full forum and are accepting comments, I think we have to be careful not to be responding to those comments at that time unless we have questions, for clarification or something. So they serve different purposes. So, and I think they're both very useful. So maybe, if we did the small group last time, maybe it is time to do one where people are just providing comments. But the small group, I know in the past when we did it, we often floated around to different groups. We weren't necessarily at the same small group, which would solve the problem of you saying, there's only 7 of us and there's more than 7 tables or whatever. I don't have a problem with us listening. I agree with Mike. You just have to be really careful that we don't comment, because any comment from a board member will be interpreted as board, and it's not necessarily the board's thoughts.
I would also agree at this point. I think we have done that. We do the small group sessions in those forums, like with budget, and then get all the community's input, and then we put them up as the questions that we have now. Because for the next meeting, and I would totally agree with Charmaine and Matt to hold that, and we might even want to think about holding that in the auditorium or something where there's more space and more comfortable, and having individual people coming up, so then we have the whole picture, and then we wouldn't have that problem
Has
with
that been released yet?
tables.
Oh.
I just put up here, this is what the district's working on from the last forum, because one of the emphasis was that there were a lot of questions. They were looking for us to give some feedback on those questions. We should have this, and I just wanted to show the board, pretty much complete by Friday. So we are planning on putting this first out to the board on Friday, see if there's any questions over the weekend, and then posting it for the public on, I believe, Monday after we've heard back and make sure that there's no glaring issues. Some of it, we just cannot give answers yet because it's dependent on certain projects and how things are put together, but where that is, we'll note that as well. But we've tried to note every question that has come out, or even questions that have been emailed to us since that forum. We've kind of tried to make a database and make sure that certain ones have certain themes, such as process, aidability, finance, how you put up a vote. So as the board has any questions as well, please send them to myself, Judy, or Greg, and what happens is we pretty much put them into the categories as they relate. So I think this is a useful tool from the budget forum that helps communicate to everyone what individuals were thinking on that evening, as well as what we need to address maybe a little at the beginning of the next forum too.
Tom, can I ask that we have a slightly longer board review time because I'm going to be away at a family wedding from Friday morning through Sunday.
Okay.
So I probably won't have a chance to even look at this until Monday.
I can get this to the board later tonight or tomorrow if you'd like to start that. Not much is going to change, just that we have to go through and clean it up.
Okay. I would still like to ask that we go till Tuesday or Wednesday because...
Oh, before we release? Okay.
Can I suggest that perhaps I'm not sure how many more forums we're going to have, but maybe the next one be a large group one, and then the board after that could come back together and say, what else do we need to know, and what format should we do for a possible third one or a future event?
Right, and I guess I envision the next meeting being Judy and Tom up there with charts and graphs and all kinds of information and you know, the answers and stuff.
But
Oh, and
I'm
Greg,
just thinking
yeah.
if all that information is going to be given out at that meeting, I'm still wondering whether it still would be worthwhile having the small groups be able to, you know, discuss that information and then maybe be talking about numbers or how they feel, how far can we go. I mean, if people are just getting up individually to make comments, you know, it's going to be more in general. They won't have had all that financial information until that night. You know, it seems like maybe when we're closer to firming up what might end up being a bond issue, that an open forum would be appropriate at that point, because some people can say, well, I like this, I like that, or I don't like, you know, the whole thing. Just something to think about.
No, you're right.
I mean, we don't have,
I could go either way. What's other people's feelings of how to
I agree.
do the
I
next
think an open
one?
forum when there's too much information can just be a nightmare. It can be people coming up, I want this fixed, I need this fixed, add this to that. I think if you get it honed down a little bit where you're more like, are we going A or B on this? Are we going B or C on this? Are we going that? I agree with Lynn on that. I think it might be easier to digest some of that stuff and get an idea in a smaller group and then go and open it up, because you're going to get 100 comments on 100 different topics, and we're going to come back and not be able to piece it together at all.
One of my concerns with this would be that if Judy and Tom are presenting the information that night, I mean, nobody's going to have a good discussion on it because they won't have time to process it, to think through it all. If it's really a lot of detailed information or facts or figures or whatever, you almost feel like, can we make at least a preliminary presentation of that on the website or something 2 days before it,
It should
or
be,
something?
right? That would be.
Because if you're just presenting it that night, I don't care if you're in a small group or open forum, nobody's going to have thought through enough to come
Right.
up with what are the questions and what should we be discussing.
I would imagine you'd have that on the website, right?
Well,
Usually they
before the-
present
We would
it
have-
then.
If we know the date and we know the positioning of the next forum, as long as we have time to be able to basically give our presentation to a videotape and put that up on the forum, that's the same thing as delivering on that night. It just depends how many people will access that type of information. It also, if we have a clear picture of that tonight, that is what the board wishes us to do, I'm sure Bill will be able to work as diligently as possible to get A, the spotlight, B, the Times Union, and I know we made at least a new friend with Channel 6 that they said they might run something just to help us in, the publicity for those that may not subscribe to the print media format. That's a possibility. What would be also helpful for us is if we can lock in 2 dates, because there would, from what it sounds like, a follow-up forum, so that at least we get that on people's calendars now, so that they can plan depending on what your thoughts are for the next forum and then going forward.
Are you talking about trying to actually videotape you and Judy doing the presentation and putting that on the website in advance? I just meant the PowerPoint with all the facts and figures. And you would still that night actually present it with the full explanation.
We could
But
do either
I
or.
think in the advance, all you need to put is the PowerPoint.
Right, because there might be questions that night when you actually
Yes,
do it.
exactly.
That wouldn't be on there.
Exactly.
But at least the plain
Yeah.
PowerPoint would be
And
there.
I also, more people, I think, would prefer to go through the PowerPoint at their own speed than watching a videotape of
Yeah.
the presentation.
No. It can be done virtually anyway, so.
And can I ask, is some of the material already up on the website, like the 5-year facilities? But so we should be telling people that some of that material is already up there for their review.
Put that through the SNN notifiers.
Because that's what I would expect out of the public forum, that people would come educated on what the 5-year facility plan is and what their priorities would be for us.
That's an idea, that maybe in the next forum B, if people review that, and that I would suggest a large session, people could just comment on that, and then we'd have a last or a third forum where people maybe go back to smaller groups, hear the ideas of, different size bonds. Do we want to do several small bonds over the course of several years? Do we want to do one big bond?
I would almost do that opposite, though.
Yeah,
I would
I
almost
think we need
think
people to be talking about that now.
that first, and then the last
Okay.
forum should be, kind
Open
of the
forum for anything
the
that they
open
want us to
forum.
think about. Okay.
Okay, it sounds like most people are in agreement then to do the smaller groups at the next meeting, and then staff or board members will float from table to table, or how do you want to, I just want to make sure
That's
it's
fine.
consistent. Not just be at one table, but definitely sit in at a couple tables.
Well, I
Like
remember
what we
when
did at
the
budget forum.
forums, they had different rooms. Some people were in the computer
They did have different
rooms,
rooms.
and it was easy to float and kind of stand in the back as opposed to try to get around all the different tables. But whatever you set up, it's.
We
Yeah.
only had 4 or 5 rooms.
What would our expectation be from this forum different than the previous one, or are we just looking for more
Well, there
of the
would be
same?
focus, there'd be focused questions on,
Right.
specific
Yep.
questions
Okay.
that each group would work on, based on the finance, the additional information, and based on the questions from last time and the responses that, people have been given.
Right, a lot of people were asking questions for more clarity before they even thought about making decisions. So now that we'll have them have lots of information, it should hopefully guide it better. Okay, but all right, so then that's what we'll do, then we'll be a part of the tables and float. Okay, as long as again, I just want to all be on the same page with that.
Tom, were you asking us for dates now? You want us
Yeah,
to
we
set
probably need
dates?
to set a date.
Preferably, the dates would be better to advertise now, the sooner the better.
Can you say something? Oh, yes, sure, Scott. Just want to stand up and tell your name to the,
Sure, it's Scott now. I just would like clarification. I get the small form that we did in September. I don't know how you can formulate more questions without getting the will of the people. I mean, if you don't have the open community forum, you're really not going to know what the people are thinking. So you're going to be guessing what those questions are when you set up the next small forum. And the only thing I can think of is we're going down the same road that we went on the busing thing. A couple hundred people made comments on the budget and helped you formulate your plan to put together the busing. And we all saw how that's worked out for us. So I think, you can prolong the process as long as you want, and you can have forum after forum after forum, but until you know what the people really want, how are you going to possibly start to clarify and drill down as to what the needs really are? So, you can have another meeting and ask all the questions you want, with all due respect, but they're your questions. They're not the questions of the community, as far as, because they haven't been given an opportunity to really stand up and have a voice. The small forums was nice, but again, they were answering 5 questions that the board and the district put out there, and really didn't allow any time for public comment.
right, but then they all were able to write in questions And, right, you have a slew of questions that people ask that now they're answering. And I think
Correct.
what I heard from some people, they wanted more information. They
Right.
wanted to know, is it really a 70% give back for state aid? Is it, all those numbers, and what is it going to be the tax dollars, which Judy was going to do those charts. Like, what does it mean to do a $5 million bond? What does it mean to do,
But I would think those answers would lend themselves to a community discussion as opposed to small group, discussions. Again, depending on who's at what table and what
Right.
people are pushing what agenda, you could have very different feedback to the board. And, it may come out very differently. I'm not saying the
Right.
small tables are a bad idea. I just think there needs to be an opportunity for the whole community to weigh in on this before you get too far in the process.
Right.
And some people are not going to send you questions, just like some people are not going to attend a meeting, just like some people are not going to look at the webcast. So I just think this is the easiest forum for somebody to come up and potentially say something and not feel intimidated or feel, like they're sitting across from a board member. I mean, it takes a lot of courage for young people to stand up here, but they do it. And I just think, this seems to be a decent forum for it, and you might want to consider that as opposed to another focused small table, that's all.
I think that's why, and also we decided to do two more. One is to try and tie it up so it's not so people going back and forth at the big forum where everybody speaks individually, because that's what I think Kate said, that would be the nightmare of too much stuff. So we're just trying to condense it a little bit, and then maybe we need to set 2 dates. Set the date, for the one with the small group, and then right away set the date for the big open forum where people can come in and, we're not going to make any decisions until we go through and
And I think sometimes people are more willing to speak up in a discussion in a small group than always. There are people that don't mind going up to the microphone, but a lot of people will enter a discussion and actually have a full discussion, in a smaller group.
Okay, Jim, state your name for the camera, please.
We shouldn't be doing this.
Jim Ciccone. I look at it, if you can answer a few questions, from a business standpoint, and our group was diverse with people on different sides, they want to know a couple things. How much, and it's going to be a repetitive thing of variables that are going to change within the formulas on things you don't have until the process is completed. I think you're right on target. Small groups are good. If you can't talk in front of 4 or 5 people, you're never going to be able to talk in front of, 300 people. And I think if you go with the small groups are good, you get out what you need. They're going to want to know, can you do a bond every 3 years, every 5 years? What's big, what's little, and what's it cost? Bottom line, what's it cost? What does it cost me? And I think it's that simple. And what can we get?
Thanks.
Thank you.
And I'm not that intimidating, Scott. Just kidding.
Okay. Do we have
Dates.
do we have a plan? Are we still good with that? So we should pick 2 dates, unless anybody wants to change. Okay. So what dates do we have? October 1st?
That would be an open Monday.
Does that work for everybody? October 1st?
We should make sure they're different days and things like
Right,
that.
okay. So we'll do October 1st? What time, 7? Is that what time we did the last one?
I think we started at 7, we were done by 9.
Last
Okay.
one was on a Monday though, right?
Yes.
Should we try a different night of the week?
The hard part is looking at the calendar. That was the one night, there's only one PTO meeting across the entire district, and nothing else is going on. Because what we were trying to do is pick nights where there wasn't conflicting school activities.
Okay. So let's do that one Monday, and let's do the open forum a different night?
Say the week of the 15th, or right after that.
I would do it sooner. I would definitely do that week of the 15th. What's the 16th look like?
We just had the BCUA process committee, but maybe we could change that.
I think we might be able to.
What about Thursday, the 18th?
I'm going to be out of town.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do the 16th.
Okay,
And
I
then
can-
that one, I don't want to, I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to
Both
speak on
Laura
that
and I
one.
have conflicts.
Oh, okay, on the 16th?
And we have the Board of Ed on
We
the
might
seventh,
have to
the
do a
Wednesday.
Monday. The 15th? So 15th
I have
work?
a board
Well, can
meeting.
it be a board meeting? Can we do it as a board meeting?
Yes?
Well-
You can call a special board meeting.
No. She's saying do it
No.
Wednesday at the board meeting. Is
What-
that what you were suggesting,
Yeah.
Diane?
I mean, can it,
Well, here's another part, or the week before, the 9th or the 11th. That's a Tuesday, Thursday.
I will be out of town on that,
Okay.
that time. That's the problem for me.
I guess what I'm saying is could we, I mean, if we have a light agenda or no?
That night is, I think, scheduled for the transportation report on the 17th
Oh, okay, never mind.
as well.
And then the following week is the board conference,
Yeah, we don't
right?
want to, I don't want to wait that long. The 15th?
Lynn wasn't available.
I have a board meeting, but go ahead, if that's the only night. You have board meetings that night, two of them
The
Tuesday?
15th, is the 15th work?
Well, no,
I
they
do
had
have
Trump
something
Tuesday.
on the 16th, but I could miss it if I need
But didn't two people have a conflict on the
to.
16th?
Charmaine has something on the 16th.
You have a board
That's
meeting,
something that you can't
Charmaine, or
miss on the
something?
16th? Oh.
Oh,
So I'm trying to, yes, I could, but I prefer it not to. But I mean, is there any other thing? If not, then I'd give that up. But
The only other date that's going to work, because we don't want to postpone this out more, is the 15th, and then Lynn couldn't be here. But then we're doing it on two Mondays, which we kind of didn't want. We wanted to have a different night.
what about
All
the
right, well-
18th?
The 18th, Mike's out of
Okay.
town.
That's what it was.
And if you have to do it the 18th, I'll just have to miss it.
Lucky for you, it's videotaped.
Yeah, why don't we-
Okay, we need a
Yeah,
decision.
If you want a different night,
Do it on the
and we're
18th.
going to miss somebody if we do it the 15th anyway, sorry, Mike.
So
I
do
would
it,
say do it on the
do
18th.
the 18th. Okay. And that way it's on a different night. Okay.
and it should. I think we should put parameters around the amount of time. So what?
Amount of time, yeah, but I want to make sure people, I don't want to just cut them off too. I want to make sure everybody talks.
Yeah.
if they
7
want
to 9, because
Yeah.
repetition
We'll try
gets
7 to 9, but
repetitious.
I'm not going to
Is
say
it going
we're
to be
done.
presentation in that? Is it going to be presentation?
I think it'll just be like maybe Tom just kind of putting what happened and,
Should
Well,
we
we'll
do?
have to see after the first.
Yeah.
I don't think we can say now.
Okay.
Well, it's gonna be
So I might even hold 6:30 to 9 then on that last one, so that there's half-hour cushion for presentation and then good 2 hours of hearing the community.
So if I'm hearing everybody correct, on October 1st, we would be doing a presentation of some of our findings with the financials, which is the number one topic. We'll be reviewing as well as going over some of the questions, but also showing where everything is. And then what questions would you want us to be posing to the small groups at that point? Do you want us to be asking them which you physically support going forward? Or do you want sort of a survey put together so that people on that evening that come out, as well as on the webcast, can also start providing some data for the board to consider as well?
I'd like to see the cost of repairing on the fields if it's not going through with the full field, because I think it's going to be one or the other. I don't think you can personally do nothing. And I also think you need to see dollar for dollar what it's going to cost people. I mean, Shen put up their $10 million wireless network, and it was costing $150 a person, they said, for a $200,000 house per year for 10 years. That doesn't seem like that much money, I mean, to a taxpayer. So, you know, what kind of numbers are you saying? You know, is it going to cost us $150 a year, and are our taxes going to go up in addition to that, or is it costing us $10 a year? And doing it is a huge difference. And so I don't think you can ballpark it just saying this is what the bond is as to what it's going to be to me. You know, I don't think there's I don't think anyone can do that in their head. So I think we really do need to start giving people numbers, knowing they're not concrete numbers, but say this is the absolute max. And that's what the table did that I was there. They wanted to know what the max was. If we gave everything on the priority maintenance list and we gave the full athletic stuff, just because we wanted to go the highest that we could go, you know, that we were talking 14 million, you know, and then where we were talking 5-year bond, or are we talking a 10-year bond? And then the question is, how much does it cost to the individual? So I think if you go in those ranges, the same way you do on a budget, you know, if you only go maintenance to the buildings, and from my table, it was pretty much a no-brainer that everybody's okay with that. But what is my cost if I only go with all of the maintenance? What if I only go with priority 1? What if I only go with all of these? What if I do the repairs to the field, and what do I do this? Like, I would love to see a chart that said that. And like you say in the budget, if it's $7 a person more per year, you know, on a $250,000 house, or $12 a year, then maybe I'm not so worried about, you know, spending that much money on something. But if it's $250 a house, that's a different story. So, you know, and nobody has any sense of this yet at all. So.
And what I'm pointing out is that was probably one of the predominant questions that came out of the group. And like, people were asking, what would be the cost for taxpayers for a bond? What would be the tax implications on, say, a $5 million bond? Mm-hmm. We have already discussed it, that we'd like to see, okay, a chart saying $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, mm-hmm. and play that scenario out, and then be able to discuss what are some other scenarios, mm-hmm. and have that chart to be able to relate to. Here's a simple calculation. I think, Judy, you did this on a $5 million bond. Was that over a 5, 10, 15, 20-year period?
It was just over a 20-year period.
Over a 20-year period, for a regular $250,000 home, it would be approximately $12 per year, or about 5 cents per thousand of assessed value. Now, that just shows one simple calculation. We want to show the variances between, say, the maximum amount that we might have to need to do everything, mm-hmm. versus if we pick and choose selective items to do on priority lists.
And different lengths of bonds too, because, you know, a lot of people are upset obviously at the fact that we're still paying mm-hmm. the previous bond. So if you're talking $12 a year to pay it over 20 years, and you're talking $20 a year to pay it over 10 years, my guess is most people are going for 10, mm-hmm. which is when you're done with the work and the bond is up. You don't want to be paying 10 years, especially when you're talking technology, where you're already having to upgrade it, and you haven't even paid for what you did 10 years ago. Right. So in terms of technology, I think the bonds have to be short. It doesn't make sense to do them long term. But other things may not make a difference, and it may 10 or 20-year bond. So I think you also have to do the length of the bond, not just the amount.
Yeah, and the length of the bond is set by statute. It's tied to what's called the period of probable usefulness for each asset. So technology equipment is going to be a whole lot shorter than 20 years. It's your buildings could be 30 years. So again,
But there's no penalty for paying these early.
Correct? It depends whether you have callable or non-callable bonds.
I mean, but that's the kind of stuff I think you should know. Yeah. Because if the state says it has to take it out for 20, but we can pay it back in 10, we're smarter financially to pay it back in 10. I mean, I would like to see those variables. Same thing people do on their own house.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Anything else for that small group? So if we provide that information,
mm-hmm.
the financials, and then allow the group to discuss what we've given them to see if there's anything that we haven't, that's what we're asking them to report out on. Mm-hmm. Does the board wish to make any comments at the end of it, thanking anybody, or just stating what you believe? I don't know what the board would be comfortable with that night. Or do you want to then end it and say, now that you have this information, we've had 2 community forums, the board is going to go into the 3rd community forum, is really an open forum for the community to help answer some questions for the board, such as one question: what are your feelings about synthetic versus repair? Or what are your feelings about the technology, and so forth? We would need those questions so that at least you focus some of the comments, so that you have time for that focused amount, and then also provide time for just the open discussion so that you can hear everything. At that point, the board will have to manage that on that evening.
On that evening, or do we do that on the October 3rd?
That would be on October 18th.
Okay,
Or,
and I guess I'm thinking after we do the October 1st meeting and kind of get what people want on the October 3rd board meeting, we can kind of talk about where we're coming from and then people will know that, so then they can come back on that 18th with, you know,
I can provide that as part of the discussion time during the board meeting on the 3rd as well.
does that make sense?
Yeah.
No,
No.
Well, I have two comments, questions, whatever. I agree with Scott that we need to know what the community wants. And it's not just financial. And so I don't know if you did this last time. I get the impression maybe you didn't. But part of the discussion might be looking at the kind of list and almost putting them into tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. What does the community want? Do they only want these things done? Do they want this much done? Do they want that much done? And not just financially, but what the actual projects are. Because they may pick and choose and say, no, we think you should do this, this, and this. And I think we need that information too, you know, not just what it's going to cost and then we kind of choose, but just to kind of hear what they think, what they would want us to do as a priority or not.
And that's what they would do in their small table discussions,
That's
right? Prioritize.
That's what, yes,
Yeah.
that's what not just the financial part, but
No, we have to
actually
give them the financial part.
Right.
But they were asking that the last time, what the
For
things
the financial
cost.
part, so they could prioritize. 'Cause
They
it's like-
were asking
Like, how
needs
much would
and
it cost?
wants. What are the district's needs? And we are planning on having that prepared for the 1st, trying to isolate what certain things are needs, what certain things are wants. And I'll use this not forming any opinion, but it's probably the hot button issue, turf. Is it a need or a want? Well, we already know on the track there's a need. It has to be resurfaced. The question still on the turf would be whether it's a need or a want. It's probably a want, but it can also go into a need. Because if you don't fix the drainage issue or the turf issue with the natural turf, that decides. But everything can go either way, but we should try to clarify that for that meeting is what I'm hearing.
Well,
Tom, can I also, maybe dating back to 1990, 92, a history of all the work we've done on fields, on the main football field and then on other fields, you know, kind of a history of all, I know we've done a lot, but I have to admit I kind of forgot over time how much we've done, you know, in past bond issues. So I think that would be helpful for us to see that.
Why?
You can.
What do you think that's going to help us decide?
Well, I just think, number one, it'll be like, have we poured money into fields and it really didn't pay off doing them because of the soil or whatever? You know, are we continually throwing money at something that we could continually have problems with into the future? I just thought, you know, it might be helpful.
I just feel like, you know, today's a different day, technology's different, everything's so different. Just because it's something that they did last time didn't work, I'm sure there's a different way of doing it. I don't know, I guess I feel
But the history
like
of the
history of the drainage
and the
problem.
drainage issues, I just think, you know,
All right. But I have a question. I didn't understand, Tom, what you were saying before, actually. Were you saying on the 1st, then the board would discuss what our thoughts were on all this?
no.
What happens is,
Or the 18th? No, I'm just asking the
I
first.
think it was like the 3rd, the next board
Board
meeting.
meeting. Because then we'll have all that information.
Okay.
We have some information.
Okay.
And then
Yep.
we'll have more
No,
information.
because I was
and we
just
can
going to say,
kind
on the night of the 1st, there's
may
no
not
way
know.
we can react to any of
Oh,
that.
no.
Right.
Okay, all right.
So what I have
think
for the
so either.
1st is reporting out on what we found, reviewing and hitting a majority of the financials to the best that we can, making sure people understand that the questions, any questions else coming in from that night, and identifying needs and wants, and then asking the small groups to respond, is there anything we've missed? What are any other additional concerns? Or where do you wish to prioritize some of the needs and wants?
I also would like a breakdown presented to the community of, by building. What, because it's all in the list, but I would like to see building by building to see which buildings are getting, based on the survey, the 5-year survey, sort of, as opposed to going down the whole list, which buildings stand to not necessarily benefit, but which buildings need the most work according to the survey. And I also have a question for you, Tom. Will you be able to talk with the principals of the elementary schools about athletic facilities at the elementary schools between now and the 1st?
We have a principals meeting tomorrow.
As the board knows, I've through the interviews, we have found out that playgrounds are state aidable. if there's work being done in the elementary schools.
This comes from incidental aid. It's no different than if you wanted to build a football field at an elementary school. All schools qualify for certain amounts of incidental aid depending on the actual school. So, and that was a question that came up throughout the services as well.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So we have a plan?
For October 1st. Then October 3rd, the board would have a general summation discussion, sort of like a debriefing as well, sort of like
Right.
tonight. And I'll try to keep the presentation on that because that's probably your biggest issue right now. And then on the 18th, we'd focus that as the open forum, open discussion with everything that's there for the board to actually sit in special session to receive comments and also question the community and receive feedback from the community at that point.
Great.
And then that would follow into the next one where at that point, the board would have to start developing any concept. And by that time, I do believe we will have a recommendation for an architect as well at Sept.
Great. Okay. Anybody else for Board of Education report?
I'll say I was at Eagle this morning, and the first group left for Nature's Classroom today for that. And I would like to see Nature's Classroom stay. It got cut down from 4 to 5 days a week to 3 days sessions, to the uproar of lots of parents, including me, who tried to get it back to its normal amount, and we were shot down for that. So the question is whether it's going to be a trend that it goes down to 1 day or goes off in the next couple of years. So I would like to see it back at full force again because I think it's a great opportunity for the fifth graders.
Do we know the reason why it was cut back?
The principals
usually
met
it's
and
self-funded
felt that
and-
it was missing too much class time and going to affect the testing and the APPR was what we were given as the reasoning. It was not a funding issue because it's self-funded,
It's self-funded, I knew that.
and
That's
there's
why I
enough fundraising and parents who offered to donate to other children to be able to go. So it's not a funding issue. It has nothing to do with the board at all, but you should be aware that it was cut back. I mean, obviously I was in it because my daughter went today, and I wish she was getting the same 5 days that her brother got a couple of years ago, and I'm wondering if my second grader's going to get to go at all. Not just mine, but obviously everybody that's going to be affected by it. I think it differs from school to school. I know that Ellesmere's
Correct.
was never a 5 day.
It's 4 days when they take a week that has a holiday during the week, and it's 5 days when they didn't.
No, not all schools.
Not all
And
schools.
in some schools, funding has been an issue recently
So-
because of the cost, so.
Eagle was 5 days since it opened, and then this year it's down to 3.
I actually have questions from Tom's report. I'm sorry I didn't get in there before. The student help desk, I don't know if Mr. D'Angelo can answer this. What kind of information are the students handling in terms of
I'll let Mr. D'Angelo.
confidentiality and things like that?
Absolutely. None of that. So we've segregated our traditional help desk ticket system that we use for our regular employees from the student help desk. They have a separate ticket database of tickets. So right now, it's kind of limited to replacing toner cartridges, helping students get on with the lab school iPads, getting on the network. The students are not exposed to any confidential or student information at all. So our hope is to help with the instructional program as well, so teachers having difficulty integrating technology in the classroom.
Thank you. And just, someone said something about the Dignity for All Students Act. I went to a training for that last year, and we've been talking about the Board of Ed library, so I brought my folder here, my binder. So if we want to start a library, I'd be glad to pass that off to someone somewhere. Thanks.
If you want to give that to me, I'll give it to Cindy. So
Great, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
I do.
Lynn?
I had a municipal board of directors meeting, it was last weekend, I think. And Katie Campos, who's the Deputy Secretary of Education for the governor, was our guest speaker. And I'm only mentioning it because it was very interesting. She really was very engaging and wanting input from the board members from around the state. And she's very young, so she seems very receptive to any kind of information. And we're talking about flexibility problems with APPR, looking at districts that maybe if they're doing well, why do we have to have the same mandates as other districts that maybe need a little extra help? Let us alone if we're doing well. I'm trying to think, sharing best practices, things that haven't been done where, maybe there could be a clearinghouse for that to, help staff members, problems with the testing. I show my big pencil. And I know I'm sure the staff kind of agrees with that. But anyhow, I mean, she was really receptive to all the information, unlike the Education Commission, which, I think some people are questioning how much, they're really taking the input from people around the state as they have their meetings. Her mother is a teacher, and I think that's really helpful, so that if there are questions, she's asking her. She's in a suburban district in the western part of the state. So I thought was very productive. I went into the meeting not expecting much, and I really thought, at least she seemed to be there wanting to facilitate change in a positive way for all of us. And then the other item I have, and I don't know whether, we don't have a resolution prepared, so maybe even just letters to our, two senators and Congressman Tonko on the cuts that could take effect starting in January. With all the campaigning, no one's talking about them, but that super committee that had to come up with an agreement on budget cuts never did, so they're going to take just across-the-board cuts, which will affect education to a great extent next year. And, I mean, here we're looking, they've already cut back before this, and if we take any more cuts, then it would be, to some extent affect us with Title I, but probably a bigger cut would be in special ed with cuts to IDEA. So I was wondering whether it'd be worthwhile if a letter was sent to Senators Schumer and Gillibrand and Congressman Tonko, from the board and superintendent, expressing our concerns. The term is sequestration, kind of the word of the day, sequestration. That's what the term for the cuts in the federal budget.
NYSBA just put out advocacy alert
right,
this afternoon.
Well,
so,
yes.
I haven't had a chance to look over it, but I knew they mentioned 8.5% of funding reduction either in special education or Title 1A funds. And they are asking for a Board of Education resolution as well as letters. We are going to try to implement, just like we talked about Educate New York Now, implement that across the district as well.
Okay, so if you want to wait till the next meeting for a resolution, or else, to me, even letters are effective too.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. I think we'll go back to our Student Senate report, because Jamie's here. You want to just state your name for the camera? That'd be great.
Jamie Rosen. It's great to be standing before you guys all as the start of this year has finally hit, and Senate has been able to get on a really fast roll, especially because of our new addition of the Senate homeroom, which I'm really happy with so far. Even today was one of the first chances that we really got to see how beneficial it was, because we were able to hold our freshman elections, which was normally an extremely chaotic event because we have to pass out ballots to all the homerooms, but we were able to plan it throughout the week in previous homerooms, and then people stopped by Mr. Irons' room, checked off to make sure that their teacher, who was Mr. Irons, was in homeroom, and then were able to distribute the ballot. So the announcement will be made tomorrow morning. So that was exciting. And also it's given Mr. Landry and Student Senate a much better connection, because he can come in and talk to Senate. And so a couple of things that we've been planning. The Dignity for All Students Act, we're working really hard with him to plan the upcoming concert on October 27th. So we're really looking to turn it into not just a concert, but a community event. So adding other games, activities, food to draw high school students in and to make it an event filled with a lot of unity and an event that high school students want to come to. Also, we're planning our upcoming dodgeball tournament, which is always, when we discussed it with the students at the senior and junior class meetings today, there were cheers in response. So it seems to be something that everyone's happy about. Another event that we're doing, starting in October, we're planning to have a board posted up in the school, and we're having nominations for students and teachers of the month. So students can write if they see someone, one of their peers or one of their teachers doing something really above and beyond, they can nominate one of these people, and Student Senate will recognize them. We're working on how we're going to honor them, but definitely a picture and a brief bio about what they're doing. That's so great. So far, the year has been a really great start, and the connection that we've been able to have with the administration has been very strong. So I don't know if any of you have any questions for me, but
I think Lynn wants to get on a dodgeball team, though. She's been wanting to do that for a couple of years.
maybe we'll open it up to the community. So
Yeah, like the bowling. Now, that homeroom is a great idea. I remember when I was in high school, well, we called student council executive board, and we had our own homeroom, and it was very effective to be able to get things done. So that was a
it
great
honestly,
idea.
it's my 4th year on Senate, and I can. There's just so much more that can be done, because a lot of times, as you know, we end a meeting with, okay, we'll check on this and get back to you. So it enables us to talk to Mr. Landry about ideas and then come back and say, well, this is what we need to do. And it just, everything has become much more efficient. So we're looking, because of what the privilege that we've been giving, we're trying to make a lot more happen. So, and another thing I just wanted to bring up to the board, this is sort of on a side note, but Mr. Landry had spoken briefly at the senior and junior class meetings today about some of the Hall of Famers. I know that there was a newly displayed Hall of Fame in the high school, and I think that we have a lot of forums with the, you know, where we have scientists in the area and they come for those Science Today meetings. If there was an opportunity for us to reach out to the Hall of Famers, and I know someone who isn't on the Hall of Fame, Megan Kelly, who I recently read about in People magazine. She's a head Fox newscaster, and her Bethlehem senior picture was broadcasted in People. So I thought that was with her V-neck robe that she was wearing. So, but if there was a way for us to reach out to them, and maybe Senate could be responsible for this, have them come to the school and hold a forum similar to Science Today, I think a lot of students would be really interested in that. So that's something that we'll work on and then hopefully get back to you. But thank you.
That's great. Good. Thanks, Tom.
I have a question. Okay. Tom, if a board member wants to attend a student senate meeting, how do we go about it?
This is for board to attend?
Yeah, look, if I wanted to see what a senate meeting looked like, are we supposed to work through the principal, or we go through what?
I think we just discuss it as a board, and then we try to coordinate that with the Senate.
Yeah,
I know
you
they're
can
very
definitely go
much
through
open.
me. I mean, we have meetings every other Wednesday after school. That's when our full-length meetings are, and so that could be coordinated basically any Wednesday that you would like to come in. We could hold a special meeting if something needed to happen, which we could plan during our homeroom, and then so basically that would be the best time to reach us.
Maybe if we could get a schedule of the meetings put on the board portal, and then if we want to just sit in, should we just contact Mr. Landry and do that, or?
Let Tom know and then Tom.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want the whole board to sit in a single senate
No, I
meeting,
went
but-
last year.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
To one of their students.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that sounds good. I was there right after the what was it? What was the name of the dance that was canceled and then it was renamed?
The glow dance.
But it was renamed, I think,
I thought it was a rave. It was renamed.
right afterwards. But it
I
was
was there
very
when you were trying to
interesting.
figure out which DJ to get. I was at that meeting.
But no, the Student Senate does a very nice collaborative job working out the difficulties, as all student leaders do, with the high school administration, and I expect no different this year, especially under your leadership, Jamie, as well as Mr. Landry. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. What am I, item 7, finance?
Finance.
It's recommended that the Board of Education approve the following finance action. Item A, purchase the claims auditor report for the month of August 2012. Is there a motion?
Second.
First, second, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That carries. Professional personnel, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following instructional staff action items A through G. Is there-
Second.
The first and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Oh, wait a minute, I do have a
Oh,
question.
okay.
I knew I had a question, I couldn't remember
Now
what it
you
was.
waited longer for that one.
Sorry about that. Actually, this question's for Jody. Laurel is a mentor for a new teacher, and she's on sabbatical, but that she can still do the mentoring, even though she's on...
Her sabbatical is actually working in the elementary schools, helping teachers with technology. So she's actually here in the district every day.
Okay. I thought so, but
And
I
it's her
thought...
replacement, so.
Yeah.
And the sabbatical's only half year, right?
Yeah.
And the mentor thing carries till June?
No, it's only for that half year.
We're not sure that's on there. Is that on the agenda?
Yeah, F was a mentor.
To her mentor, oh.
Okay.
Teacher.
Did we vote? We didn't vote on that yet, right? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Support personnel, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following support staff action items A through K. Is there
Second.
the first and second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That carries. And correspondence for action. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following correspondence action items A through B. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
The first and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries, and, boy, that's it, huh? And then recognition of visitors on a non-agenda item. No? Okay. Future meetings is Wednesday, October 3rd, 7 o'clock. We also have our facilities forum, October 1st. That's going to be at the middle school, right?
At the high
That is
school,
one
okay.
question. We, administratively, we talked, we had a very good turnout on the very first one that filled the middle school's capacity of the library. The thought was that we would use the cafeteria with the screen
Here?
presentations here. For this, if you do the second one, we'd probably tell you use the biggest auditorium that you have, which would probably be here. So
Okay, so
is
just
the
keep
board
them all here.
okay with it coming to the high school?
As long
Yeah.
as your formal presentation's in here, not in the cafeteria. The acoustics in there are just awful.
Yeah, but you might not have enough.
Right.
You won't have enough seating,
Oh.
so let's try and
We
make,
will have the full speaker system in there.
Okay.
I don't know the
Okay.
history of that, but I know I've used it for faculty meetings,
Okay.
and that was much better.
okay. And did I just go through them all? The 17th, November 3rd. And then we do have to go back in executive session.
Second.
That's first and second. All in favor?
For personnel issues.
For personnel issues, sorry. And that will
Well,
be
it should
it.
be for superintendent's evaluation.
Well, it's for superintendent's evaluation,
And
so
there's no action to be taken as well.
no action to be taken. So, and Judy, Jody, and Kathy do not have to go to that part of it, so. Okay. So participation in government. Did we vote? Oh, I thought we did. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. Yep, we need sign-out sheets for our participation in government students. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight.
Sign-out sheets are right up here.
It pays to come early in those September meetings.